Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're jumping straight back 1,000 years, right into the freezing, unforgiving reality of the North. I'm speaking to you as a veteran Viking warrior, and I want to share the story of my life, our legacy, and the history my people literally carved out with our own scarred hands. I was born in a place where just waking up and surviving the day was a struggle. Food, incredibly scarce. The wind cuts right through fur and bone. Nobody hands you a thing in that frozen world. Only the absolute strongest earn any respect. But our story doesn't just, end in the snow. It's about sailing vast oceans, raiding incredibly wealthy kingdoms, and becoming the most feared warriors in human history. I am a Viking, and this is our legacy.
So check out this brutal contrast. On one hand, you've got the deadly, scarce winters of our home in Scandinavia. The sun just abandons us for months, and weakness, that's literally a death sentence. To see another spring, you've got to be harder than the ice under your boots. But then, on the other hand, you have the pole of the ocean. It's this massive, churning expanse promising untold glory, gold, and a name that's going to echo through history. And it's exactly this tension, the suffocating grip of a brutal homeland versus the absolute thrill of oceanic exploration that forged us. The freezing winds pushed us out, and the horizon just pulled us forward.
Let's get right into part 1, Forged in the Freezing North, Surviving Scandinavia.
Listen, during our childhood years, we didn't play. We learned how to survive. Those deadly winters were my first and, honestly, my most unforgiving teacher. When snow buried our longhouses and the hearth fires went cold, there were absolutely no safe spaces. We had to learn to track and hunt when the ground was literally frozen solid, reading tiny deer tracks in the ice. Think about the intense discipline it takes to wield a heavy hunting spear when your hands are completely numb from frost. Our community demanded strength because our environment demanded it. We spent our early years just ruthlessly eliminating weakness from our bodies and minds so no enemy could ever break us.
And all of that survival, it was deeply tied to our absolute faith in Odin and Thor. Glory in battle wasn't just some catchy phrase we chanted, it was the beating heart of who we were. I always knew the All-Father was watching from his high seat. We truly believed that glory wasn't won by living a long, cozy life by the fire. No way. It was won by showing unparalleled courage when the time came to draw blood. Every time thunder crashed in the stormy skies, it was Thor reminding us to be strong. That faith drove my courage, eliminating any hesitation. We lived to achieve total respect as warriors, knowing for sure the gods favored the bold.
Moving on to part 2, Sailing the Violent Seas, focusing on our great longships. Now, these longships, they were our greatest weapons, hands down. I still vividly remember our daily rituals before preparing for a long voyage. We'd be out there smearing pitch along the overlapping oak planks to seal the hull, checking the tension of the heavy wool sails, and offering blood to the gods for safe passage. The longship is a total masterpiece of engineering. I'd stand on that wooden deck, smelling the salt spray, feeling the ship flex to absorb the shock of crashing waves. They were massive enough to cross violent oceans, but shallow enough to glide right up riverbeds and storm foreign shores without a whisper of warning. Believe me, when you saw that carved dragon head cutting through the swells, you knew a reckoning was coming.
I'll never forget my first raid across the sea, leaving those familiar fjords behind. We actually used sunstones to navigate through blinding fog, reading the flight of seabirds and the shifting watercolors to find our way to unknown lands. And man, the ocean tested us instantly. We had to endure terrifying oceanic storms, gripping freezing ropes while black waves just crashed over the gunwales, but we held fast. When the green shores of England finally appeared through the mist, we didn't hesitate for a second. The landing was swift, and our attack was fast and utterly brutal. Panic just swept through the villages as our boots hit the muddy banks. We took the treasures and gold we came for, stripping their halls bare. In that moment, the whole world shifted. For the very first time, people across the sea truly feared my name.
That brings us to part 3, Conquering and Exploring Distant Lands, going beyond the raids.
People think of us just as raiders, but we were explorers at our absolute core. Sure, we ravaged kingdoms across Europe, and gold, silver, and weapons filled our ships to the brim. But we had this deeper hunger pushing us outward. We desperately wanted to discover what lay beyond the horizon. My kin sailed violent seas to settle the volcanic black sands of Iceland, enduring brutal elements to build a home. And actually, we didn't stop there. We pushed further into completely unknown territory. Our long ships cut right through the icy Atlantic to reach the shores of North America, literally centuries before Columbus even dreamed of setting sail. These discoveries stand as proof of our relentless drive to map the edges of the world.
So, whether we were charting unknown icy lands or raiding wealthy kingdoms, our presence permanently altered history. The psychological impact we left? It was monumental. When the carved prow of my longship emerged from the dense morning fog, the kingdoms of Europe knew exactly what was about to hit them. We weren't just men coming to fight. We were like a force of nature. We didn't just conquer territory. We commanded this legacy of absolute awe and terror. Everywhere our ships appeared, paralyzing fear followed right behind, spreading through monasteries and castles long before we even drew our blades.
All right, part 4, the bloody path to Valhalla, right into the heat of battle.
Let me tell you, in the absolute chaos of combat, there is zero time to think. You only act. I still hear that deafening, bone-rattling sound of axes crashing against splintering wooden shields. Arrows would literally blacken the sky, raining down on the muddy battlefield in a lethal downpour. And my fellow warriors, guys I trained with since those brutal childhood winters, were falling all around me. But you know what? I'd grip the heavy wooden handle of my bearded axe, knuckles completely white, and swing it with every ounce of intense discipline I had. Parrying thrusts, cleaving through mail, the heat of battle is this suffocating inferno of blood and iron. But I didn't stop. I just kept fighting.
And right in the center of that chaos, with death pressing in from all sides, fear meant absolutely nothing to me. We actually fought with a ferocious joy. Why? Because we knew that dying bravely with a weapon in our hands led directly to Valhalla. That's the legendary Hall of the Fallen, where we'd feast, drink, and fight alongside the gods themselves. Having that profound faith completely stripped away the terror of mortality. Falling in combat wasn't a tragedy for us, it was the ultimate reward. That is exactly what fighting for Valhalla feels like, this overwhelming rush of divine purpose that turns mortal men into unstoppable forces.
Which leads us to our final chapter, Part 5, An Immortal, Fearless Legacy, and How the Legend Survives.
It blows my mind that even centuries later, the world is still utterly captivated by our survival, our conquests, and our exploration. It's been over 1,000 years since I first boarded that longship and braved those oceanic storms, yet our deeds are still celebrated everywhere. Modern culture is practically saturated with our stories. You see our roaring faces in blockbuster movies. You guide our steps in epic video games. And our myths are all over TV shows and books today. The brutal, unyielding legacy we forged in the freezing north simply refuses to die. It's truly immortal.
Sure, the history books remember the sprawling kingdoms we raided, the gold we took, and the distant shores we explored long before anyone else dared sail out of sight of land. But what truly resonates with people today, the real reason our way of life inspires legends, is how we lived. We faced deadly winters that froze the breath in our lungs, violent oceans that swallowed entire fleets, and the sheer, bloody chaos of combat without a single ounce of hesitation. Our fearless attitude remains our greatest historical legacy. We didn't just conquer lands, we conquered fear itself.
Obviously, the world has drastically changed since the days I stood shoulder to shoulder behind a splintering wooden shield. But that unyielding discipline, that refusal to bow to fear, and that relentless drive to step into the terrifying unknown, that's timeless. So here's my question for you. When you face the violent storms of your own life, will you retreat into the safety of comfort, or will you channel our spirit? Think about how the fearless attitude of a veteran Viking warrior can inspire you to conquer your modern challenges today. Keep that in mind as you face your own battles. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.